Join Gator great Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Good morning. Welcome to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning, coming to you from the International Diamond Center Studios with locations across the state of Florida and right here in Celebration Point in the heart of Gator Nation. I'm Graham Hall from 247 Sports. Shane will be back tomorrow. I'm blessed to fill in today and be here on this beautiful Monday morning with all you lovely people after a long weekend. Hope everyone had a great 4th of July. We're going to go to our guest line here, to someone who I know had a great 4th of July and was like me, was up a little bit late last night watching a thriller at Azteca Stadium between Mexico and England. It's the man, JC. JC, how you doing today?
Graham, I'm doing very well. Yesterday was a very good day for us sports fans who are following the United States men's national team in the soccer tournament because two great things happened. The first thing was, of course, FIFA invoking Article 27, which means the judicial body of the FIFA basically can overturn a red card, I guess, is what it meant. I just learned that. I didn't know. But, Balogun is going to play. And I'll tell you, man, we need Flo Balogun because he is the leading scorer of this team. He is the guy that can put pressure on another team. He's our Percy Harvin, basically. He's the guy that's going to get the ball in the back of the net, or one of them. And not having him, and I'm not sure what your feelings were when that initial red card was shown, but I was vehemently opposed to the penalty, and I think it warranted more of a yellow card. However, saying that, it was a red card. Now Belgium is pissed. Belgium's prepared without Flo in the lineup. Now they have to prepare with Flo in the lineup. Too bad. You want to beat the other team's best if you can, and Belgium is whining about it. But having said that, I think we're going to see him play, and I think we're going to see just a spectacular game, much like what we saw last night in Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, where, by the way, if you saw those aerial shots, there was no parking. I don't know where 100,000 people come from, although I know it's Mexico City, but did you notice that there was no parking around that football stadium? It reminded me of Knoxville. So there's no parking. There's just no, but they come, and that was a great night. And I know you watched it along with myself. And man, this tournament is just this. It's had it all. It's had everything in this tournament.
Yeah, it was incredible. First 35 minutes looked a little bit disjointed last night. Then Jude Bellingham gets 2 goals in a matter of 3 minutes there, the 36th and the 38th minute. Then we have a little bit of controversy. We get the red card and a penalty on Harry Kane, where he looked like he was just trying to clear the ball and kicks the Mexico player in the back of the ankle there. And, I want to get your thoughts mainly on video replay in general, because it's applicable not just to the Balogun decision, but with so much replay, I see people out there complaining about it adding extra stoppage time. But for so long in the sport, you had to live with the referees' mistakes, good or bad. They'd call you offsides when you wouldn't be offsides, and guys would score where they were offsides, and they, would get away with ticky-tack fouls. Now you have so much video replay and players can protest. How do you feel about VAR just being so prominent in the sport? Do you like it? Do you like that they can make sure that they get everything right, even if it's at the expense of games taking a little bit longer and having to track these 10, 11 minutes of stoppage time?
It seemed like in that game that Flo got the red card, it came down to a discretionary decision on what the referee wanted. Was that really a penalty that deserved a red card is arguable. When we have instant replay, we basically do it to make sure that a certain rule is followed or that the right call was made, and it takes it out of the hands of the official. In this case, the official put it back into his hands by making that he didn't have to throw a red card in that case. But it slows everything down to where now we're watching something in slow motion, and it could change what he's actually thinking in terms of, yeah, I think I will flip the red card, or no, I won't. And in real time play, slow motion is not part of it. It just helps you see what actually happened. And it's hard to make those calls sometimes when it's just slowed down. It's like, oh, that's egregious. Well, if it's so egregious, then why is Lionel Messi not given a red card when he rips out an Algerian guy's calf muscle? So with the base of his shoe, we slowed it down to see that, but they didn't make that call. So then it becomes a discretionary call to the ref. And so that's the only problem I have, is that these refs are just deciding themselves what to do. Should I call it a strike or should I call it a ball? Because nobody else wants to. And I guess he has to do that. But it comes down to where I think the rule is clear, but now we're going to make a decision based on what we think we should do about it. And so I don't know really how to answer that question, Graham. I just think that getting things right is important. There's a lot riding on these decisions. If we need instant replay to make sure that ball got across the goal line, okay, I'm okay with that, because it happened so fast and there's so many people around. We might need a little help with that. But when it comes down to, okay, this is what happened, we slowed it down for you, now what are you going to do about it? I'm not really sure what the right answer is. But he didn't have to throw Flo the red card, but he did. He didn't have to throw Lionel Messi a red card, and he didn't. So it just comes down to what the guy feels like. It feels like to me. So I don't know if that's good or bad, Graham. I'm not going to complain about it because it affects everybody and all the games. But I just want, like, I thought the official last night was actually pretty good. They've been getting a lot of flack for the way these games have been officiated, but that guy kept it under control, because let's face it, that atmosphere was unbelievable in Mexico City. It was very much in favor of Mexico. It gave them every advantage, and credit to England for going up 2-0, because they needed that. And so, Mexico got their break too. They got a free kick. So, a penalty kick, I should say. So I think it all evens out. And so I'm not really sure whether I'm giving you the right answer or not. I don't know. Do you like it?
No, I like the concept. I think it's a little bit excessive. It's kind of like you make your bed, you got to sleep in it type thing, because for so long,
yeah,
soccer was advocating for video replay. They were ahead of the curve on a lot of it. But I've talked about this. Referees are part of the game, good or bad. You have to live with their decisions. And the human element is part of sports. Part of being able to talk about, oh, that's a missed call, or this call didn't go our way. That's part of it. That has always been a part of sports. And when you remove that element of it, or you make it a little bit excessive, like we're seeing here at the World Cup, I just don't think that everyone really likes all that kind of involvement. But soccer wanted this, and now they have to, live with it. But I do think some of them are a little bit excessive here. I want to make sure we thank Mick Hubert for sponsoring PodUp with Matthews in the morning. And we want to thank all of our fantastic sponsors, including Money Metals. Gold and silver investors, find out what makes Gator-owned Money Metals different from other coin companies that often resort to high-pressure sales tactics. Not at Money Metals. For more information, visit moneymetals.com or call 1-800-1865. All right, let's talk about today's games coming up. We have a thriller before the U.S. game between Spain and Portugal. Maybe not the best World Cup for Cristiano Ronaldo, but all eyes are always going to be on him. This Portugal team has been a little bit tough for me to figure out here. Listen, let me just say this, because we're going to talk a lot of World Cup. If you're not a World Cup fan, I'm sorry. You're missing out here. I know people all the time, they complain when I talk about soccer. They complain when I talk about NBA in July. Listen, it's the off season for college football and college basketball and baseball here. So we're going to have to talk a little bit about World Cup, what is going on here. And if you're not a fan, I'm going to say this, you're missing out. I can't tell you what to watch, but I think you're missing out. Spain versus Portugal should be a thriller today. Portugal is a fantastic team. They have a great midfield. Spain is just Spain, though. Oyarzabal is fantastic. You've got the wonder kid in Lamine Yamal, who started the tournament slow. He was dealing with that little leg injury there. He's fully healthy now. He's a fantastic tactical player, great dribbler on the right wing. What do you like in this game today? I got to ask you, because I know you're a big gambler here.
Love it.
How have you been, watching these games here? I've seen some people complain about betting on the World Cup and how their bets only go to 90 minutes when so many of these games are going into extra time and 30 extra minutes, and the bets then close at that time unless you have a team to advance. you have three possible outcomes. One of the two teams wins, or you have a tie. What do you like in today's Spain-Portugal game?
In many of these cases, you can take a team on either side and the tie and still win money because both of those are giving you plus odds. You won't win as much, but you can still win money. So we had Portugal play Croatia the other day, and I think that was last Thursday. It was hard for me to watch Croatia have 2 goals taken away from them on very, very discretionary offside calls. Now they could say yes, the replay showed the guy was offside by that much, by this much, by this much. I don't know. I guess offsides is what it is. But boy, it was hard when the ball, we think, hit the back head of a Portuguese defender when that second goal was allowed in extra time that was given a little bit more time for that play to happen. A lot of folks said the time should have run out. That play never should have happened. We shouldn't have even had that last goal that Croatia thought they scored there in literally the last seconds of extra time. So sometimes the breaks go your way and sometimes they don't. And I'm finding out that in this tournament, but usually the better teams do win in this thing. And I think we've only had 8 countries in the history of the World Cup actually win the World Cup, which means you don't have many underdog countries or many third world type countries win this stuff. And when I say third world, I'm just saying less prosperous countries. Okay, let's just put it that way. You don't have that. But Croatia had Portugal right here. Senegal had Belgium right here in the palm of their hand. How that got away from them is really unfortunate for Senegal. We should actually be playing Senegal right now. But the reality is that Belgium never quit, and they came back and showed us how good they are. And the same thing with Portugal. So my take is that both those teams can be had. I think Spain wins today. I think you're getting close to even money, maybe laying a little juice with Spain. You take Spain. I don't think Portugal, they're 1-2 through the group stage. I don't think, or 1-2-1 or something. In other words, I think they won fewer games than they actually tied or lost. So to me, Spain is a stronger team. I'm starting to see Spain with their offense really find a flow and a rhythm to their game. I think we all think that before this tournament started, Spain and France were the class of the tournament offensively, and I think that's what we'll probably see in the finals, but it may not happen. But I'm taking Spain today. I think the United States, if they beat Belgium, will play Spain in Los Angeles in the next game. And that's to me, if you want the best in the world, you're going to get it, because Spain to me is one of the 2 or 3 best teams in the world.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Spain is the better team. I think they've played better thus far. Like I said, I think they're going to control the midfield. I think their defense is really, really good. Rodri is fantastic. Ruben Diaz is fantastic. This is a team that has just played really well. I could see it going to extra time. Then it gets really interesting. Do you bring off Cristiano Ronaldo like they did in the 88th minute of their last game here? Yeah. You mentioned it, though, so let's keep staying on this track. My wife is not a huge World Cup fan, but she has tuned in, and we watched, we cut off the movie we were watching the other night to watch the end of the Croatia game, and she was livid. I mean, we slowed that thing down.
Yeah.
And tried to see, I couldn't tell if it hit him. What we were talking about with the excessive technology, there's a little chip in the ball that can apparently determine whether it hits someone. I don't know if it hit his head. I watched it 100 times. I couldn't tell. I made a joke on social media that clip is the best advertisement I've ever seen for getting a haircut for someone like myself, because it looked like it
looked like your head,
the lock of his hair. And he doesn't have as long hair as mine. So the U.S., we can complain about VAR, but if anyone really has the strongest case, it's Luka Modric and Croatia. I hated to see Modric, a former Ballon d'Or winner, have his international career presumably come to an end in a controversial decision like that. He was shown reacting to the decision, just laughing. This is someone who played for so long without this type of technology that you kind of got to sit there and laugh and be like, man, this is really what the game has come to. I mean, that was the worst decision of the tournament in my mind.
It hurt, man. It hurt looking at the pain on those fans' faces when once again we have this controversial type of just arbitrary call. because a fingernail was off in front of another guy's toenail, or some guy's hair got hit, which we don't know. I mean, maybe it did, maybe it didn't. I think if it did, that would have been, of course, the right call. That's the rule. But I don't know. I mean, how do you know? Only that player knows. Only that player knows. By the way, I'm glad you mentioned that we are in the dog days of summer, and we primarily focus on the Florida Gators of football. So here's today's Florida Gator focus for you. They're 60-1 to win the national title. They're 22.5 to 1 to get to the playoff. Get to the finals, and they're almost 4-1 to make the playoff. There you go. You can get that today, because those are just going to go down. And if Billy Napier, the worst coach we've had in decades, can go 8-4 in 2024, then this guy with a new quarterback can go 8-4. So the over 7.5 of wins is the play, in spite of the schedule, which, by the way, I did look at over again, Graham. October is the gauntlet. October 17th at Texas. On the 31st, basically, Georgia in Atlanta. Is that right? And then November 7th, home against Oklahoma, who I think is going to be a surprise upstart team in this conference. I think Oklahoma is going to be really good. So I think they give Texas all you want in that Red River rivalry. So those are the three games to me that stand out on the schedule. Otherwise, Auburn, Ole Miss, and Missouri are doable. Ole Miss being at home, and Missouri and Auburn on the road. That's going to test this team. If they get through that with a 4-2 or a 5-1 or a 3-3, either way, I think we can still go over 7.5. So there's your Florida Gator moment.
Injuries occur whenever and however ever convenient. For sprains, strains, and minor fractures, UF Health OrthoCare makes it convenient for you 7 days a week, including evenings. UF Health Orthopedics and Sports Medicine. You're right on, man. College football is going to be here before we know it. I know a lot of video game fans out there excited for today, the release of EA Sports College Football 2027. We've been going over the depth charts, the rosters, looking at other teams here. We've been making our predictions. I've been counting down my most important players that I think are going to impact the Gators this upcoming season, 26 and 26. So you can read that over at Swamp 247. And I kind of want to get your take on this, because I kind of want to get your take on John Summerall's demeanor in general, because he's a stark difference to Billy Napier, who was buttoned up and wouldn't, really say anything exciting a lot of the time. He would kind of, I don't want to say beat around the bush necessarily, but you would get kind of, veiled words and statements at times, because Florida needed every single competitive advantage that they could get on the field. John Summerall, you can't really rein him in. He is going to speak what's on his mind, whether he's saying that he could be at the top of the stadium threatening to jump if Florida's only bowl eligible, that, he's a guy who is going to have some quips, and he's perfect for the stage at SEC Media Days, which is in a little over 2 weeks. It's in 2 weeks starting in Tampa, and Florida takes the stage on Wednesday there. So 16 days from today, he'll be down in Tampa talking college football, along with all the other 15 other SEC head coaches. What have you liked about John Summerall's demeanor, how he's gone about not just selling the program, selling himself, but how he just approaches talking in media interviews, and how he comes across to just the general fan who maybe he's been a little apathetic the last couple of years and wants to feel excited and buy back in?
Well, I haven't met him or talked to him, but what I've heard people tell me about him who have, and one, of course, is Shane, is that it seems like this guy's actually got a heartbeat. He's got blood flow. He's actually got some emotion underneath him. He was a linebacker at Kentucky, so he has to have that, right? And when I look at the personality of coaches that seem to win in this conference, let's just use Steve Spurrier and Nick Saban. Very, very passionate coaches, guys who had a heartbeat. The ones who lose, let's call them Brian Harsin at Auburn. How about Billy Napier at Florida? How about Mark Richt at Georgia? Yeah, he won a lot of games, didn't win a damn thing. So these are coaches that are a little bit more reserved, and it's all about personality. And I know you can't change who you are, but you better if you're going to coach in the Southeastern Conference, to me. And you need a guy, if you're an AD, to go out and find somebody like John Summerall, who played linebacker, who coached championships at Troy, who coached a team to the championship game at Tulane, of all places, to bring the emotion and the fire into the stadium. Now, that means you still have to have good players, right? I think good players will gravitate toward that personality at a place like Florida, as opposed to Brian Harsin folding his arms saying, "We'd love you to come to Auburn." I think it's a fine academic institution. And in my day at Boise State, let me tell you how we did it. That won't get the kid here. And to me, I think John Summerall will elevate the emotional but the talent level at this school. Florida's had great players, even under Billy Napier, but the reality is they never really came together, it felt like, on the field. They had a couple good games. There's no denying that. Texas, LSU, some of these good games we've had, but we've also had some clunkers. And you got to find some consistency. And to me, he's very consistent with his demeanor. And I think that's the start. Now we have to get results. It's a results-driven business, but you're going to attract better players, to me at least, at a place that has all the things that Florida has, with a guy that is very excited about talking to you, coming here, and being a part of what he's going to try to establish at the university. So to me, having not even ever met him or talked to him, I see the personality. And when he was first hired, I knew, I said, this is going to work out. This is going to work out. I believe it. And even if they lose to Auburn and they're 2-1 after the first 3 games, I'm still on board. I'm going to be on board the whole season, regardless of what happens, because I think this guy's a winner. He's shown it as a coach. And, he's a player. He played a linebacker in the SEC. I like that.
I think a lot of people who have seen John Summerall's demeanor, if they were in the camp that was adamant that it was Lane Kiffin or bust, they probably no longer feel that way, because John Summerall has appealed to Florida fans. But like you said, he hasn't won a game in Gainesville yet, and all that goodwill that has been bought can evaporate, as we all know, if you go out on the field and you don't have a competent team. I think Florida is going to be a much more improved team this upcoming season than a 4-win team.
Yeah,
I know that's not saying a lot,
I mean,
but
God,
I want to get
so.
your take on this as well. And I want you to tell me what you think. If you had to make a prediction just based on getting Buster Faulkner here, we've talked a lot about quarterback play. Understandably, this is an exciting time to have a quarterback competition. First real quarterback competition we've had here in Gainesville in nearly a decade. I got to go back to, I think, 2017. When Emory Jones was battling for the job, and then they bring in Malik Zaire from Notre Dame in the summer as well. That was really kind of the last true quarterback competition. Go back to last year. I know a lot of people want to forget about last year, but you didn't have DJ Lagway really available in spring camp. But the quarterbacks who were participating in spring camp, Harrison Bailey and Aiden Warner, who were taking all the first team snaps, they didn't really have a realistic chance of winning the job. Now you have a quarterback competition between Aaron Philo and Tramel Jones Jr. But with that said, do you believe that Florida needs to have stellar quarterback play to be a successful team in 2026?
Let's just say it has to be very adequate, a lot better than last year, and he needs to stay clean. That means they have to block for him. That means they have to protect him. They have to keep him healthy. What I get excited about is our game breakers, in my opinion. I've seen Vernell. I think he's great. I think Dallas Wilson, in the one good game he's had since he's been here, because he's always been hurt, if he stays healthy, can be an unbelievable game changer. And we all know Singleton is going to be a stud here. So I'm excited about those 3 aspects that the quarterback has in his arsenal to attack. And I think Buster Faulkner is going to attack defenses. He's going to expose where they are weak. He's going to try to find space out there to exploit with these guys catching the ball. If you get these guys the ball, great things will happen, but you got to protect. So Shannon and I both agree that if the offensive line sucks, we're all going to be wondering, what are we doing with all these great athletes? Because it's going to be hard. But if they can protect, and these 2 quarterbacks, who I think are more than adequate, get the ball to these playmakers. And then let's remember, we still have Jaden Ball standing back there waiting for the football. I mean, Florida's got some incredible playmakers. They just got to get the football to them. And that just means blocking and not turning the ball over. And so if that happens, Florida's going to win some games, because these guys are outstanding players. So I think that's where I get the over 7.5 wins, because I think these guys are going to be in the end zone a bunch, a lot more than where they were under that bum we just rolled out of here. So I'm excited.
Yeah, they got to figure out the offensive line. You got to.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it.
That's the big one right now. And someone's going to be unhappy in the wide receiver room, because it's the guys you mentioned. but they also bring in Micah Mays Jr. Bailey Stockton played through injury last year. I think he's going to be better than people think.
And then Abrams.
Yep. And you got, if you can get anything out of Khalil Jackson, that'd be a win for Florida as well. I'm guessing you're not in the camp that doesn't want to see 2 tight ends on the field. I got one more question for you, then I'm going to let you get out of here. Tell me what else you got coming up on your radar as well. But I want to hear, if you had to pick, and this is a little bit of a too early prediction, who do you think is maybe a surprise candidate to contribute for Florida? It can be offense or defense, that if you had to pick someone that maybe is not getting the attention of a guy like Eric Singleton or Vernell Brown or Jaden Baugh, who do you think could maybe surprise some people this upcoming season?
You mentioned the 2 tight ends. Maybe we play with one, and maybe Amir Jackson has a really breakout type of year. Maybe it's Luke Harping. I mean, maybe it's the tight end. Maybe we get the tight end involved, because you're going to see a lot of defenses focus on these guys I just mentioned, but that tight end's just wandering out there perhaps. Maybe we use him more. So I'm going to go with one of those 2 tight ends, either Harping or Jackson. Let's just see how that works out. But Jaden Baugh, everybody knows who he is. Everybody knows he's going to get the ball, and everybody knows that he's going to make big plays. But boy, it's going to be hard for a defense to deal with those 3 guys I mentioned, maybe one of those 2 tight ends, and a guy like Jaden Baugh. And the quarterback literally just has to keep the ball, protect the football and not give it away. If that happens and they can just keep them dry or keep them clean for a reasonable amount of time, I don't see how this team doesn't get in the end zone, bro. I really don't. And so I'm going to say maybe one of the tight ends.
No, I like that. I know not a lot of people want 2 tight ends on the field, but you need to have
one
impressive tight end play. And, Harrison Moore, who I project to be Florida's starting center, he's played some tight end in a pinch as well. So you're going to have capable blockers out there on the field. JC, I appreciate you joining me this morning. Tell everyone what you're doing for the game tonight. What's your game day atmosphere going to be like?
I stayed an extra day on A1A over here in St. Augustine. I'll be back tomorrow, but I'm going back to Hurricanes tonight with my friend Abe and the crowd. Let me just say this. This place is as animated as it has ever been for a football game during these silly soccer matches. I guess it's because it's a World Cup. It's the United States. It's pride. It's nationalism. It's populism. It's the 4th of July weekend, that kind of thing. I was hoping the game would be last night so I could get back to Gainesville today, but I'll just have to push that back a day because we get the World Cup once every 4 years, and here in America once every 12 or whatever. So I'm all about tonight at Hurricanes. We're going to raise hell. We're going to wear our red, white, and blue and beat these lousy Belgians and send them back to Europe and move on to Los Angeles to play either Spain or Portugal. I can't wait to watch that one either. Today is a soccer day. When I get done with some emails and some early work, it's going to be soccer. And Monday Night Football in Seattle at 8 o'clock tonight is going to be fantastic. And I think that first game is going to kind of prime us and tune us up and get us ready. Listen, man, if this team can get to the quarterfinals, this is going to be so exciting for the next 5 days to look forward to playing either Portugal or Spain. I can't wait.
Absolutely. No Stella Artois for you tonight. Get home safe.
That's
absolutely.
Right.
It's going to be a fantastic game. Appreciate you joining me this morning. It's always a pleasure to talk to
Graham.
You got great insight. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you in always, and take care and have fun tonight. Go USA.
Absolutely. All right. Coming up on PodUp with Matthews in the morning, we'll be joined by Swamp 247's Tyler Harden to talk some recruiting, recap how the month of June went, look ahead to how this week could unfold for Florida on the recruiting trail, maybe talk a little 2028 class that's coming up right here on PodUp with Matthews in the morning.
Our premium sponsors are Atlantic Roofing, Campus USA Credit Union, International Diamond Center, J.F. Hayden's Craft Liqueurs, Los Landeros Tequila, Meldon Law, Titan MRI and Imaging, Castaway Sauce, UF Health Orthopedics, Michael Schneider PLLC, Florida Legends Gala and Experience, Money Metals, Sensei Asian Bistro. Our gridiron sponsors are Baker Sports, Florida Cracker Oyster, Gallo Car Wash, Miapa Latin Cafe, Peachland Dental, Quality Plumbing, Ruse Ogre State Farm, Silverback Concrete, 84 Lumber, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Florida Cracker Kitchen, Gator Dominoes, Ironwood Golf Course, McDonald's of Gainesville, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, UF Bookstores, International Gold and Diamond, Advocare, and MGA&A Wealth. Watch and listen to us live on Facebook or YouTube. Listen to podcasts wherever, on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And to advertise, be sure to call my man Freddie at 352-284-3733.
When the late, great Charlie Daniels would need a place for jewelry he could trust, he turned to International Gold, Diamond, and Watch Exchange.
Hi, I'm Charlie Daniels, and I live in Tennessee, but when I get ready to do something serious about jewelry or a gift for my wife or somebody, I always get in touch with the folks at International Gold and Diamond Exchange here in Gainesville. There's a lot of reasons for that. One reason is they sell nothing but the best.
Find out what Charlie was talking about for yourself at International Gold, Diamond, and Watch Exchange at 3440 West University Avenue and online at igdwex.com.
What's up, everyone? I'm Mike Pouncey, and this is my twin brother, Marquise Pouncey, and this is Life After Football.
Let's go. We are the owners of Tropical Distillery, and JF Hayden's is our liqueur brand.
We have 5 different flavors: a mango, a lychee, an espresso, citrus, and key lime pie. We pride ourselves on not only being a Florida-made brand, but also a cocktail solution. With that being said, cheers,
And go Gators.
To the Swamp and the Gators, with the best beverage served at Spur's Gridiron Grill. 100% agave, Los Landeros tequila, aged in bourbon barrels for a smoother taste.
I think you mean Head Beer Coach 1966 lager, a crisp, light, bodied lager for easy drinking.
Nope. Los Landeros tequila, smooth enough to drink neat, bold enough to elevate a cocktail.
1966 lager, enjoyed on game days in the fall or whenever you need a winning cold brew.
Gainesville's best-kept secret is finally being revealed. Introducing Sensei Asian Bistro. Located in Celebration Point next to Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, Sensei delivers a one-of-a-kind Japanese-French fusion experience that's as refined as it is unforgettable. Indulge in signature dishes like our smoked New York strip, Chilean sea bass, matcha curry, or the crave-worthy chunggang chili chicken. Pair it all with handcrafted cocktails, fresh crudo oysters, or our premium A5 Wagyu tataki. Sensei Asian Bistro. Make your reservation today.
Welcome back to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning. I'm Graham Hall, filling in for Shane today. It's always a pleasure to join you all. Talk some Florida football, basketball, World Cup, as we just had JC on here in the first half to recap everything going on in Florida right now and around the country. It's been a really exciting time. I know Tyler Harden, who's going to join us now here for the second half of PodUp with Matthews in the Morning, has been watching some World Cup. Tyler, you're going to be tuned in tonight to watch the USA take on Belgium?
Absolutely, man. I've been looking forward to this one for a few days now, of course, so it's going to be exciting. Good game, of course, so we're going to see what happens, but no, it's looking good for the US tonight, and interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah, you can listen to PodUp with Matthews in the Morning on 39 digital platforms like Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and more, and follow and like us on Facebook and YouTube and Twitter. Tyler, what was your reaction to Fuller and Balogun getting the red card, not rescinded, but suspended? I had never seen that before. I had never heard of it happening. I saw a bunch of people mentioning that Garrincha, the right winger who played for Brazil in the 60s, had one suspended due to corruption in 1962. What was your reaction when you saw that Balogun would be available tonight?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, it's awesome for the US, of course. That was it's their best player, to be frank, right? So having him, at one of the most important stages in the World Cup, right? It's huge. And, you say like all the way back in the 60s that happened. Like, I didn't even know that was a thing, that you could do that, that you could suspend a red card like that. So yeah, very interesting, but, good for the US that, they'll be at full strength. To my understanding, Belgium will be at full strength. So, two of the best teams in the world going at it, in one of the biggest stages in the World Cup. So, it's definitely going to be good to see tonight.
Yeah, I can understand why some other countries were a little bit angry at the decision here. Belgium has chimed in, Norway has chimed in on it. I understand it. But selfishly, it's great that it benefits the United States. So, but we're going to talk some recruiting here. We talked enough World Cup here in the first hour with JC. Want to thank him again for joining us. And want to thank all of our fantastic sponsors, such as Gallo Car Wash, Don't let love bugs damage your car. Gallo Car Wash is your get rid of love bugs headquarters. And with a monthly membership, you can stop by Gallo Car Wash daily. I know I need a car wash. May have to check them out. Tyler, you've had a busy month, so I appreciate you joining me. Florida's had a busy month on the recruiting trail. Just briefly, give me a general overview of what you thought of Florida's recruiting efforts throughout the official visits. You were always on campus. You caught up with every single prospect. You talked to everyone who committed. You were on top of it, my friend. What did you make of Florida's recruiting efforts their first June and end of May under head coach John Summerall? How do you think they did on the trail? Maybe not as much activity as we've seen in the past, but that's because Florida did so much on the recruiting trail over the previous 5 months. What did you make of Florida's efforts throughout this summer official visit window?
I mean, first of all, to kind of piggyback off of what you just mentioned, how Florida really, did a lot of their building in the months of April and May. I think we're kind of seeing a shift in the recruiting calendar once again, and I think it has a lot to do with NIL, how guys want to get their spots. To be frank, they want to get paid, and the earlier they can get in, the better that'll be, and the easier that'll be. So it'll be interesting to see if that's how it plays out, how everything starts to move up once again, and we see another shift in the calendar. But, when looking at Florida, of course, right, it was all about kind of putting the final knots, and they're kind of still in the process of doing that right now. But a lot of the month of June was getting these guys on campus, doing what they have to do to just put on a good show for a lot of these uncommitted guys and get them in the fold. And of course, we saw some guys like Karan Wheeler and KJ Johnson, commit on campus for their official visit. So just getting these guys on campus in general was huge, but, not, having them leave uncommitted was even bigger for some of these guys. But of course, that's easier said than done to have that, for everybody. And of course, no school is really able to do that. So Florida getting as many guys as they did in the fold for during the official visit window, being that they had so much early action, it was very good just to kind of see the class round out. But we're of course not done with that yet. So
it always helps when you have commits on campus to help the coaching staff, because it means one thing coming from a coach who, has to recruit for their program. But when you have a commit who can help spread that message to uncommitted guys, it sometimes means a little bit more, because uncommitted guys can be a little bit more open and honest with commits. They can ask about their experience, and they can make plans and talk and get to know the people that they're going to look to play alongside for either 1 year or 4 or 5 years. Now, who were some of the guys? I know Maxwell Hiller was on campus for a visit. Who were some of the guys who were already committed to Florida who, from what you've heard, helped Florida's recruiting efforts with the uncommitted guys over the last month?
yeah, I think there's several, honestly. One that kind of comes to mind for me is cornerback Amari Fountain out of Warner Robins, Georgia. Very outgoing personality, very outgoing guy. So, he wasn't really afraid to go after some of the bigger fish that are on Florida's board right now, and really just kind of tell them, hey, Florida's the place to be. You're seeing what we're building with this 2027 class and the vision that John Summerall has. So he was a guy that definitely came up when asking a lot of these uncommitted guys, like, hey, who's recruiting you? Who's talking to you? Who's telling you about the program? Another one is Peyton Miller. Obviously, another guy out of the Lone Star State that Florida was recruiting is Jalen Brewster, a 5-star defensive lineman committed to Texas Tech. Peyton Miller was talking to Jalen Brewster a lot, being that they're both from the state of Texas. So he was another one that was very vocal, once he committed back in April, really just trying to recruit this class and help it build up into what it is today.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Jalen Brewster, and I know that there's some uncertainty in his recruitment process, but he's so high profile that it probably is one of the top recruits that we still hear mentioned about joining Florida's class. He gave an interview last week where he said it was between LSU and sticking with Texas Tech. I'm not going to make you put a grand prediction out there on whether Florida's in it or not, but do you believe that, based on everything you're hearing and Florida's intentions of sticking in his recruitment, do you believe that Florida still has a small or a significant, any type of chance here obviously things could change in the next 6 months before early signing day, but is this a recruitment that Florida could still find a way to stay in over the next couple of months?
So Jalen Brewster, the way you cover recruitment like that is that you report on what's happening right now, because that may change, 2 weeks from now, a month from now, 2 months from now. You get the idea. So, like you said, he did give an interview last week. It's between LSU and Texas Tech. Of course, him sticking with Texas Tech, he's been committed there since October. LSU has generated a lot of buzz. There's a lot of confidence in Baton Rouge that they can really pull this one off. And, on the NIL side of things, LSU is very competitive with Texas Tech. And of course, in the college football landscape these days, it's not exactly the easiest thing to do. But when you ask if Florida's still in this, they're going to be in this until the December, when Jalen Brewster and every other prospect in the country puts pen to paper. That's just one of these recruitments where you're either on offense or you're on defense, right? Texas Tech has been on defense for several months now. That isn't going to likely change. They're going to be in this kind of battle, I guess you could say. LSU will be as well. Florida will be as well. So it's going to be one of those recruitments where you see its ebbs and flows. You see, LSU generate a lot of buzz. You see him with Texas, sticking with Texas Tech, generate a lot of buzz. And I wouldn't exactly discount Florida getting some buzz at some point. It definitely would not surprise me. As of right now, the buzz has definitely decreased on Florida's side, but he's a prospect that Florida is going to continue to push for until they don't have a reason to anymore.
I think even if Florida, maybe this third team in the race for Jalen Brewster, so to speak, right now, that there's a lot of people out there in Gator Nation that want to hear just that Florida is going to intend to recruit the biggest fish out there left on their board for the duration, the remainder of the recruiting cycle. Because, and, not to call you young, I mean, you've been killing it, your entire time doing this here, but this is maybe a little bit before your time. But a lot of Florida fans still remember previous head coaches when they found themselves in third in a race for a prospect like this. They would, I don't want to say give up, but kind of, accept defeat a little bit prematurely here and know that they really didn't have a great chance. Dan Mullen and Jim McElwain, to an extent at times when they were on the outside looking in, they would turn their attention elsewhere. So I think there's a lot of people that do want to hear that Florida is just going to try and remain in the mix as long as they can until pen gets put to paper. And hey, listen, there have been recruitments recently where even if a guy signs with a program, I'm not saying this is going to happen with Brewster, but if you remain in it till the final minute, you never know when someone could have a change of heart. That's what happened with Dallas Wilson when he signed at Oregon and then realizes that he wants to stay closer to home, had some family aspects that wanted to keep him here in the state of Florida, and Florida remained in it till the end, and they end up getting Dallas Wilson out of his financial aid affidavit, and he comes to Florida, and now is one of Florida's more promising second-year players for this upcoming season. So staying in it is obviously really, really important here. But that's in the future. Let's talk about the present. You wrote earlier this week that Florida could see potentially 2 players come off the board and pick the Gators this week. Raheem Floyd and Kamari Whitfield, 2 guys who are going to have Florida at least as a hat on the table. I know that's, maybe not literal here because some guys don't always do the hat on the table, but you do see that. Florida is finalists in both these guys' recruitments. Let's start with Floyd. Briefly take me through Floyd's recruitment process this far, what Florida's message to him has been. He's between Florida and Missouri. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask you to make a prediction because who knows what can change here. He commits on Thursday, I believe. What's gone into Floyd's recruitment process from Florida's side?
So Floyd commits tomorrow at 3:30 Central Time. He's over in Illinois.
I told you to correct me. Thank you.
No, you're good. You're good, man. So yeah, Floyd will commit tomorrow at 3:30 Central Time, so 4:30 Eastern. He's going to decide between Florida and Missouri. So he officially visited Missouri first. That's a school that's a couple hours from East St. Louis where he's from. East St. Louis has sent, a handful of guys to Missouri. So there were, some unique points of view that he got from that program. Of course, one of them being Nashawn Montgomery, who transferred from Florida to Missouri. I kind of joked with him that he's kind of the perfect person to talk to in this situation because he's seen both programs, of course, to different extents, but, just in general, right? So Floyd will commit tomorrow. Missouri, is a program that has generated a lot of buzz, the hometown factor, but also just the involvement they've had in his recruitment. They've been around for a while, where Florida kind of came into the mix a little bit, more recent, in the kind of later months of the spring, where Florida kind of generated more and more buzz. They started to push a little harder. They got him on campus the end of May for an unofficial, and he came right back in the middle of June for an official. And on that official visit, Florida made some big moves and really kind of became a top contender that could really compete with Missouri. And going into tomorrow's commitment, I love where Florida stands. A couple weeks ago, I put in a crystal ball prediction that Florida gets this one done, and a little more than 24 hours from the decision, I still like where that stands for the Florida Gators.
Wait, that's good news, and I know a lot of Florida fans want to hear. Castaway hot sauce with real flavor, not just heat and vinegar, built by Gators for Gators. Castaway hot sauce available at select Publix. Let's turn to Kamari Whitfield. Now that one is a little bit farther away. Actually closer, excuse me. He decides, I believe, today between Florida and Nebraska, that school out west, the Seminoles, and a couple others here. Same question. What has gone into Florida's pitch to him? Maybe what you're hearing a little bit. And since you gave me your take on Floyd, I'm going to go ahead and put you on the spot. How do you think this one ends up today?
Yeah, so Whitfield is a former Tennessee commit. He committed to Tennessee back in October, but he opened things back up in February. And something that kind of got caught in the crosshairs there is that Florida was pushing for him. John Summerall and the new staff were pushing for him since he was committed to Tennessee. So, him opening it back up, kind of had some arrows point to Florida, being that they were pushing early on for Whitfield, who was committed, of course, to another school. As the spring went on, Florida's position kind of grew stronger and stronger, and for a lot of the time, they were the school to beat. Other schools began to strengthen their case as well. One of those being Nebraska, who has a lot of buzz, in the days ahead of his decision. So, Florida was always kind of there and, always kind of made great impressions. Of course, they recently had him on campus for an official visit at the end of May. Just the energy, he raved about the energy at Florida. Everybody made him a priority in the building, as they have for several months. So also going into this one this afternoon, I love where Florida stands. A couple weeks ago, I put in a prediction as well for Florida to get that one done. Nebraska has generated a lot of buzz as well on the NIL side of things. So, it's been a competitive one really between Florida and Nebraska primarily, but I like where Florida stands, and I think they get this one done.
Well, you heard it right there. Tyler has been on it. He's nailed all his predictions. If you read his fantastic work at Swamp 247, he's kept everyone informed. Really appreciate the job that he does. Got one more here for him before we let him get out of here and get back to work. He's a busy guy, absolutely. It hasn't just been 2027 commits for Florida. They picked up a commitment from a 2028 prospect as well, which you and I were talking about this. Having a building block is key for a lot of programs here because, again, like what I was talking about with having a commit help recruit, it's someone that people can look to. It's early momentum on the trail. I know not a ton necessarily in a pitch went into landing Armani Strong, but just what is the balance from what you understand of recruiting both two classes at once, 2027 and 2028? And maybe if you can throw in a few more prospects. I know it's too early for some guys, but who else has Florida been heavily recruiting? Because you've written about a lot of 2028 kids recently here. Who are some of the names that you've been following that Florida's been pushing for already, even if it's, 18 months out from those guys putting pen to paper?
Yeah, kind of like I mentioned earlier, how the recruiting calendar shifts, seems to be shifting once again, kind of earlier rather than later. It's interesting to see, that because then you kind of look at the 2028 class and you're saying, hey, like how much do we need to accelerate this process in order to get you in the fold earlier than later when, spots just start to fill up. So that'll be interesting to kind of keep in the back of your mind on how this might affect Florida's 2028 class and really just the 2028 class as a whole. But then you look at the past couple of weeks, Florida hosted a lot of 2028 talent for both its Friday Night Lights camp and its Grill in the Ville recruiting cookout. So getting one guy out of, the amount of prospects they had on campus, getting one guy in the fold this early on is of course very ideal just to kind of get your class kick started and start off on a really healthy note. And that's exactly what Florida did with Armani Strong, a talented receiver out of South Florida at Chaminade Madonna Prep in Hollywood, Florida. Very great route runner, very fast kid. Of course, speed kills down there in South Florida. So that's exactly what Florida's getting, a route running technician, but also the speed to go with it. And then, you ask about other 2028s to kind of keep an eye on. One guy I really like where Florida kind of stands early on, they've made him a huge priority, is 2028 defensive lineman Prince Chi out of Thomas County Central in Thomasville, Georgia. He tells me that Florida's in contact with him every day. He hears from somebody at Florida every day. So, Chi, I think, is one to keep an eye on going into the fall. Of course, he's not far from Gainesville, so he plans on being at, Florida games multiple times this fall. So I like where Florida stands there early on, but of course, so much can change, in the coming months. But he's one that I'm really kind of keeping an eye on and seeing where this goes, especially in the fall.
Absolutely. Michael Schneider, attorney, real estate attorney. Michael Schneider, a UF class of 93 graduate, can help you save thousands of dollars in real estate commissions by assisting you in selling your home or land by owner without a broker. Contact Michael today at 321-345-7870. Visit maschneiderpllc.com. Tyler, I want to thank you for joining us today. Let everyone out there know what you got coming up here. Obviously, you got two recruitments to follow here in the next couple of days here. Where can they read your fantastic work? Where can they follow you on social media? Let everyone know out there how they can stay plugged into what you got.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter or X or whatever you want to call it, TTJ Harden 8, and then I'm over on Instagram, Tyler Harden 24/7, and of course all my work is over at Swamp 24/7 and 24/7 Sports. And for the next couple of months, honestly, a lot of the focus is going to shift over to 2028. So getting an early look at these guys, we're definitely going to provide that over there.
Yeah, and Tyler does a recruiting podcast every Tuesday with a different prospect on Florida's board or someone that could get a Florida offer. I know he's got a ton of content over there, so check that out. That's going to do it for today's show. Appreciate JC joining us in the first half and Tyler Harden from Swamp 247 joining us here in the second half. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in to PodUp with Matthews in the morning. I'm Graham Hall. Shane will be back here tomorrow. That's going to do it for us today, though. Hope everyone has a great day today, and go USA against Belgium. I'll see you guys next time.